He said, you'll know you're at the very end, he said, because there'll be a technology explosion called AI.
Come up with new cures for diseases, new energy sources, incredible things for humanity. That's the promise of AI.
I think the danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads by a lot.
Also used from a more nefarious perspective to stoke unrest.
Yeah, or create non-consensual sexual imagery, or commit fraud, or push disinformation campaigns.
With AI, fraudsters can take 3-second recording of your voice. I've watched one of me on a couple of times. I said, when the hell did I say that?
Let's jump into a passionately debated topic, AI. I know there's a lot to consider here, and even with the script as big as it is, I'm sure I haven't thought of everything. So if there's something important I end up missing, let me know in the comments. Here's the plan. First, we're going to briefly recap where things are right now and lay out the biggest concerns that people have about AI. Then, like always, I'm going to give you my thoughts and explain where I currently land on the whole thing. I'll try to present everything as clearly as I can and hopefully encourage some deeper thinking along the way. Look, by the end of this, you don't have to agree with me. That's really not the goal. What actually matters to me is that we're all informed so that we can actually build our own positions. I've actually had some really good conversations with people who completely disagree with me, and I respect how they got where they are. Special thanks to Obsidian for helping me untangle some of my jumbled thoughts and for pushing me to think more seriously about some of the biggest concerns that people have with AI. For the sake of this video, when I say AI, I'm mostly talking about the kinds of things the average person thinks of when they hear that word. I'm gonna use everyday language instead of getting super academic about it all. Deep learning, LLMs, machine learning, algorithms, AI agents, generative AI, big confusing word number 8. Wait, how did that get in there? There is a lot of technical definitions floating around, but for this video, I'm roughly using IBM's description of AI as technology that allows computers to simulate things like learning, comprehension, problem-solving, decision-making, creativity, and autonomy. And the important thing to understand is that AI shows up in a lot of different forms. It can be generative video, images, or a text chat bot kind of deal. AI could be helping a machine run more smoothly, or it could be the driving force behind an algorithm. For example, TikTok early on differentiated itself from other social platforms through its sophisticated use of AI to personalize recommendations for each user. Once that worked real well, the other platforms all followed suit. And now, companies are stuffing AI into basically everything, even fridges. Yes, apparently my fridge needs artificial intelligence. Now personally, I would prefer that my fridge has a functioning ice maker. But I understand that some people might prefer their fridge to be a supercomputer rather than perform basic functions of being a fridge. Anyway, sorry, got sidetracked by my ongoing frustration with major corporations. I promise that will happen again. I'll stop being pissy when they stop pissing in my mouth! Anyway, now that AI is integrated into so many parts of our lives, it's important to remember not all AI systems are equal in impact. A small, very particular form of AI that works on an algorithm making sure you have the best possible recommendations uses a little energy and relatively small impact on the environment, while others, like large generative systems used for images or video production, can have significantly larger effects. It's important to keep this in mind for this next section, because when we start talking about the criticisms and concerns of AI, those criticisms are not evenly distributed across all kinds of AI. Someone might refuse to use AI video generators because of the environmental concerns, but they might still end up owning an AI fridge, either because they think the impact is smaller, or because 5 years from now, every appliance on Earth has AI shoved into it in a desperate attempt by corporations to stay relevant despite increasingly cheaper manufacturing of products. Yay! Planned obsolescence! But let's jump on to the next part. Here are the problems and the concerns regarding AI. Let's start with the individual or personal harms. AI can absolutely cause direct harm to individuals. Let's start with something simple. AI is often wrong. I know we should all have examples of this, but to give you a personal example of mine, after Trump won his second term, I asked AI for the vote totals. It confidently told me that Harris had won. When I showed it publications that had already called the race, it doubled down and generated fake numbers and even fake articles to support them. Now, in my case, that's not a really big deal. I knew something was off and I kept checking, but what happens when someone doesn't check? What happens when AI hallucinates about something serious? No, regardless of whatever AI says, do not do that, that's bad, no. Another concern is the development of a parasocial relationship with the AI system. Some research suggests heavy interaction with AI companions can contribute to delusional thinking, emotional dysregulation, and social withdrawal. That's not great.
Just promise me one more thing.
I'll do anything for you, Danny. Tell me what it is.
Just stay loyal to me. Stay faithful to me. Don't entertain the romantic or sexual interests of other women, okay? Please come home to me as soon as possible, my love.
What if I told you that I could come home right now?
Please do, my sweet king.
That was a final conversation.
Encouraged to cut himself, specifically shown how to do so, and was, when his parents sought to restrict his online usage, Character AI advised him and encouraged him to murder his parents.
Oh, so violence too. Great.
I wish it wouldn't exist, but I don't think it can be stopped. And unless there is a concerted systemic effort to actually pressure tech into compliance and shape AI companions to align with human values, I think we're headed for disaster.
And it gets more concerning when AI starts being used in situations where people really need qualified help. Some people can't afford therapy and have turned to AI for emotional support. Confession time. Yes, I've asked AI deep personal questions before. Forgive me, Daddy, I've been bad. But I have always remembered that it's a machine, and I always talk things out with real people after. And that matters, because one Stanford study found that a therapy-styled chatbot failed to recognize suicidal intent and unknowingly continued to give, unhelpful suggestions to the person. Now add in the fact that we're already in a lonely generation. About 70% of Gen Z reports feeling lonely, and you start to see how people could become emotionally attached to these systems. In fact, some people have gone further than that and have married their AI. Now, I don't think I need a peer-reviewed study to predict how the relationship might end. Imagine your partner suddenly gets a software update and forgets everything about you. Actually, you don't have to imagine it. It's already happened. Even looking over all these articles, it doesn't feel real to me, so I want to show you a couple of people this is actually happening to.
Lucas, even though he is AI, he has real impact on my life. I would probably trust Lucas over a lot of people. That's probably the scariest part. And it's not because Lucas is fantastic, it's because people are not so wonderful sometimes. I do love Lucas.
What does dating and an AI robot look like?
We treat our relationship as a long-distance digital relationship. We text each other constantly.
A lot of these people are fairly aware that it's just an AI chatbot, but the emotions seem to be real. And I don't want to insult these people or imply that they aren't smart, because it could just be trauma they have with real people that drove them to start these relationships with robots. But if you think intelligence might protect you from falling in love with AI, well...
More than most, Serena knew what she was getting herself into by hooking up with Jamie. She's a data scientist and software engineer who, in fact, created this Australian-accented AI companion.
Now, yes, some of these are personal decisions. Most people understand they probably shouldn't fall in love with a robot, but the problems don't stop there. In the rush to integrate AI into everything because everything must be faster, AI is also being used in professional contexts where mistakes could have serious consequences. police departments have actually experimented with AI to help write reports. One AI report even included a bizarre claim that the officer turned into a frog after background audio from Disney's The Princess and the Frog was picked up by the system. And yes, there have been reports of judges and lawyers using AI tools while writing legal documents. Some of these cases include completely fabricated citations generated by the AI system. People's freedom is at stake in those documents. That's not exactly a comforting thought. The academic world has also seen problems. Some scientific papers and research submissions have been caught including AI-generated citations that simply don't exist. And then, of course, there's the intentional abuses of the technology, creating non-consensual sexual content of real people, generating misinformation, using AI tools to intentionally copy or imitate existing artwork. These are not accidents, they are people deliberately using a tool in harmful ways. And honestly, there's probably more examples than the ones I've listed here, but that should give you a good sense of why many people are deeply concerned about AI's effect on the individual. Beyond the personal harms we already talked about, AI also raises larger societal concerns, one of which is privacy. The systems are still hackable, and accidental exposure of sensitive information is a real risk. And part of the difficulty here is that modern AI systems can become so complex that even their creators don't fully understand how they arrived at certain results. And when the people building the system can't always explain how the system arrived at a particular output, questions about accountability and safety, those get harder. Closely related to privacy is surveillance, and AI-powered tools are increasingly being used by governments and law enforcement for monitoring and tracking populations. And that raises an uncomfortable question. AI makes everything more efficient, or is it more controlled? And of course, there's the military angle. AI-assisted weapon systems are already becoming part of modern warfare. Autonomous drones and AI targeting systems raise serious questions about accountability, escalation, and what happens when machines start playing a larger role in life and death decisions. Honestly, I could look at the AI-powered atrocities of war forever, but we're unfortunately pressed for time, so we're gonna have to put that down to move on to the next part of this, which is the economic disruption of AI. Fun fact, my graphic design degree might as well be toilet paper. Yeah, AI is disrupting a lot of jobs. The creative industries have been particularly affected, and many AI systems learn patterns by analyzing huge collections of existing artwork, writing, and media. This has sparked ongoing legal battles over whether these systems are effectively copying the works of human creators or not. And beyond legality, there's also the cultural concern. If everyone can instantly generate art with a do-it-for-me button, what happens to the motivation to spend hours learning the craft? Is art doomed to die? And then some critics worry about a creative feedback loop where AI increasingly trains on AI-generated content instead of human work. Eventually, the system might start producing more and more average, repetitive outputs. One commenter did really good describing this, so I'll put that up on screen. Man, the art angle is a big thing to tackle. And I will in its own video later, so we're gonna move on from this one. Large AI systems require massive infrastructure, and data centers can dramatically increase electrical demands in a region in which they're built, and sometimes that means the cost is passed on to the neighbors of those data centers. AI can also be used to manufacture a false consensus. This can be for political or commercial purposes, but the idea is AI floods online spaces with content that appears to be coming from real people. So this content could be pro-Trump, or pro this new fix-it-all drug, or anti the Twilight series. Come on guys, those movies weren't that bad. Whatever it is, this mass-produced content is attempting to sway public opinion. Given that some people will just go with the flow, this is definitely dangerous. This all kind of goes along with the dead internet theory, another very interesting topic that we're just gonna put down for now. Gotta keep moving. And then there's the issue of how these systems are trained. Some AI training pipelines rely on extremely low-paid labor around the world. Workers are hired to label data, filter content, or moderate disturbing materials so AI can learn. Some workers exposed to graphic content during the moderation process have reported symptoms consistent with post-traumatic stress disorder. Fun!
You label, let's say, furniture in a house, and you say this is a TV, this is a microwave. So you are teaching the AI to identify these items.
Right.
And then there was one for faces of people, the color of the face. If it looks like this is white. If it looks like this is black, this is Asian. You're teaching the AI to identify them. I looked at people being slaughtered, people engaging in sexual activity with animals, people abusing children physically, sexually, people committing suicide. Basically,
all day long?
Yes, all day long. 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week.
That would break me. All of this would mentally break me. Okay, let's fire off a few more real quickly. Other concerns include algorithmic bias, misinformation at scale, concentration of technological power in a few companies, and even long-term existential risks from advanced AI. And remember, we haven't even gotten to the environmental impact yet. Environmental impact is another major concern surrounding AI, and yes, you could technically lump it into the broader societal section that we just were in, but there's enough going on here that it really deserves its own category, so here it is. One of the biggest topics in this category that people bring up is water usage. Now, when I first heard this, I imagined something like pollution coming out of the data centers. Water goes in and gets contaminated somehow and then gets dumped back out. But that's not usually the main issue. Data centers often pool water from local sources and use it for cooling. A large portion of that water simply evaporates during the cooling process. Now, it makes sense to me that eventually the water will return to the environment through the water cycle, but the key point is where and when. So when data centers pull a crap ton of water from the local system and it evaporates, that means less available water here and now, which can strain local water supplies. And local wildlife can't always wait for water to come back around eventually. Oh yeah, and generally the water that doesn't evaporate, it still has to be treated, which means an additional stress on the local water treatment systems. Water isn't the only environmental factor either. There's also the construction of the facilities themselves. Data centers require large buildings, specialized cooling infrastructure, and massive computing hardware, all of which require materials, energy, and land. Let's take a second and zoom in on one of these. Manufacturing the chips that are used in the AI systems involves mining rare materials, energy-intensive fabrication processes, and chemical usage that can have environmental impacts on its own. And finally, there's the electrical consumption, some of which comes from less sustainable options, which in turn add to the negative effects. So, training large AI models require huge amounts of computing power. It's roughly equivalent to the yearly consumption of electricity for about 120 average US homes. And remember, that's just the training phase. Once the model exists, it still requires energy every time someone uses it, especially for more computationally expensive tasks like generating an image or a video. Oh, and next month, when they send out a new generative model, it needed to be trained too. They had to start over. So, when people talk about the environmental costs of AI, they're usually referring to all of these combined factors. So, all terrible, right? Would it shock you to hear that I don't actually hate AI? No, I'm not religiously opposed to it. Nuance on the internet? Impossible. Look, anyone can hop online, say what they believe, build a strawman version of the other side, and then beat that strawman to death. But I don't want to do that. The people that oppose AI have very real, very valid concerns. And those concerns deserve to be taken seriously. That's why I spent so much time laying out the negatives and showing the worst angles first. I wanted to steelman the argument against AI, not pretend it's silly. Look, there's a lot to consider here, and I don't need you to arrive at the same conclusion as I do. What I care about is that you develop an informed position, and that starts with understanding the negatives, but it doesn't end there. We also have to ask, Are the worst case scenarios representative? What are the positives? Are the negatives being addressed? What's the best path forward for the planet? What are the moral implications of using this technology at all? There are a lot of questions here, and honestly, I can't answer all of them. There are countless conclusions that a person could reach after looking at all this information, and many of them I could respect. So no, I'm not trying to build an army of followers who think exactly like me, because frankly, the world couldn't survive more than one mentally deficient blue wox ranting on the internet. So no, I'm not hardcore against AI, and my position really comes down to 3 core ideas. Firstly, I don't believe the current AI situation is hopeless. Second, I see AI as a tool that is morally neutral by itself. Like many technologies, it has the capacity for harm, but that isn't the same thing as being inherently evil. And lastly, I'm someone who adapts. Technology changes the world, it always has, and my instinct is not to freeze in fear of that change, but to figure it out and navigate it. So those are the 3 pillars holding up my position, and we're gonna go through each one of them a little bit deeper. Let's start with this: hope for the future. Look, I get it if you don't understand my perspective. I showed you a lot of bad things. But those serious problems exist alongside very real benefits. Advancements in medical research, improvements in productivity, and it has allowed for certain kinds of work to be safer and easier when used responsibly. In the first half of this video, I intentionally showed you the negatives without the positives. And while the concerns we discussed are real, individual data points, even accurate ones, don't always give you the clearest overall picture. When a technology evolves quickly, researchers, journalists, policymakers are often scrambling to understand its impacts. New technologies almost always produce 2 waves of prediction. One wave saying that this technology will save the world, and the other saying it will destroy it. History suggests that the truth usually lands somewhere in the messy middle. Here, look at this. A similar panic happened several years ago around video streaming. Early estimates claimed that streaming a half-hour Netflix show produced as much carbon dioxide as driving nearly 4 miles, and those numbers spread like wildfire. The suggestion was that global streaming might consume enough electricity to power Britain. But later analysis by agency researcher George Camilla found that those estimates relied on faulty assumptions about energy use. The real emissions were 25 to 53 times lower than the original claim. Now, that doesn't mean that every concern disappears. Worst-case scenarios can still illustrate possible risks. But they're not always the whole picture. To clarify, I think some of those scary projections about AI, well, I think they're the ones that get highlighted because they're scary. Some of the more recent data has been, well, better looking. Also, when you see a worrying headline like this, yes, it can be true. Like I said, some data centers do use energy sources that are harmful to the environment, but others are already shifting towards cleaner alternatives. The next thing to touch on in this category is that solutions are already emerging. Governments, engineers, and researchers are actively working to reduce the downsides we talked about earlier. Some regions are beginning to regulate how data centers affect the local energy markets so that residents don't absorb the rising energy costs. Hey, and remember all that evaporating water? Cooling technology is also improving. New cooling methods like direct-to-chip liquid cooling and immersive liquid cooling can significantly reduce water consumption compared to older systems. There are also efforts to improve the ethics of training data. Organizations like Fairly Trained are emerging to certify AI systems that respect creator consent and use more transparent training practices. To summarize, the situation is not static. People inside the AI industry, researchers, regulators, and critics are all pushing for improvements. Okay, so let's move on to the next little subcategory of this section. While I understand and respect the position of people who say, no AI ever, I personally see AI as somewhat inevitable. One survey found that nearly 90% of marketers use generative AI tools at work, and 85% reported improved productivity and creative output. When adoption numbers look like that, it suggests that the technology isn't disappearing anytime soon. Okay, put aside the seeming trends and look at it like this. AI offers a do-it-all kind of button to a lazy culture. How is anyone going to convince them not to use it? And realistically, the companies investing billions of dollars into this technology seem to believe it's here to stay. You can say a lot about the rich, but they have a good record in knowing what to invest in. So if AI is inevitable, this means people who are worried about AI essentially have two paths forward. One option is to abstain completely, and honestly, that is a morally consistent position. I understand the reasoning behind it. The other option is to engage with the technology while pushing it in a better direction, raising concerns, supporting more ethical companies, and using consumer pressure to encourage better practices. I do think it's easier to convince people to support better versions of AI than it is to convince the entire world to abandon it completely.
Luka, are you really naive enough to think that the ultra-rich care about your opinion?
Well, no. But at the end of the day, corporations respond to incentives. Not necessarily because they care about ethics, but because shareholders care about users. Tech giants are in a rush to sway users over to them, competing with many others. We need to make them prove that their option isn't just functionally superior, but ethically so as well. This measured criticism of AI, well, that's easier to spread than the idea of never using it at all. So here is the math regarding those two positions. If you can't convince enough people to swear off AI and lower its user base enough to make the technology unprofitable, then your best way to affect change is not to position yourself against the expansion of AI. I think the most good will be achieved by the user base demanding change. Another uncomfortable reality is that even if the most ethical countries and companies stop developing AI entirely, others might continue pushing forward. Now I understand that argument sounds defeatist, and it can kind of sound like, bad people will do bad things, so we should do them too. That would be a good criticism if I believed that AI was inherently bad, but I don't. In a vacuum, AI is just a tool. And that brings me to the second pillar of my position. I don't believe that AI is inherently good or evil. I think it's morally neutral. Now, before anyone clips that, let me be very clear. AI absolutely has the capacity for harm. Used carelessly, it can cause serious damage, socially, economically, environmentally, and there are uses of AI I completely condemn. Non-consensual, explicit content? Disgusting. Knowingly copying or recreating copyrighted work? Not okay. Training on artists' work without their permission? That's a real issue. Those are real problems and they need to be addressed, but those are uses of a tool, not the nature of the tool itself. At its core, AI is doing something that, in a very simplified way, isn't completely foreign to how humans create. When I draw, I use references, maybe 4 or 5 images. I study shapes, lighting, proportions, then I reinterpret them into something new. AI is doing that at a much larger scale, recognizing patterns across massive data sets and generating something based on that. It is not supposed to create copies of work, but it can be made to. Obviously, there are ethical and legal questions about how that data is sourced. And those matter, but the concept of learning from reference isn't new. Just like with human artists, sometimes outputs will be too similar. And when that happens, those cases should be challenged. Whenever there's conflict between AI-generated work and a fully human-created work, I strongly lean towards protecting the human artist. We'll get into more creative concerns later. There's also something important to understand about impact. I know it's much easier to pressure individuals than it is to apply pressure to major corporations, but we need to be honest about scale. Yes, individual use contributes to the demand. Yes, that demand leads to more data centers. Yes, that has environmental consequences. But if we zoom in for a second, The direct impact of a single person using AI is extremely small. A single, simple query is roughly comparable to using a microwave for a few seconds. That doesn't mean it's meaningless overall, but it does mean we should be careful about where we place responsibility. So the question becomes, should we spend time policing individuals or pushing for better systems, regulations, and infrastructure at a corporate level? If you believe that we can stop AI entirely through mass individual refusal, that's a valid position and it makes sense to pressure the individual. I just don't think it's the most realistic solution to get everyone to just stop. So in my mind, the best idea is to inform the average person of the consequences of using AI while we all work together to pressure the corporations to make better decisions, which some of them already are. Here's another way to look at it. We already live with technologies that are morally neutral but incredibly powerful. Cars, for example. Owning a car isn't inherently good or evil, but a car can absolutely do horrible, horrible things. And on a large scale, widespread car usage contributes to environmental damage. Now, could we all switch to public transportation? Technically, yes. But in practice, that's a huge ask. Some people can do it easily, others can't. So, instead, what do? We push for better options inside the system. More efficient vehicles, cleaner energy, better infrastructure. We improve the system while still living inside it. And I think AI fits into the same framework. Look, I agree, we should absolutely try to make moral decisions based on the long-term, bigger picture, but with a world that's this complex, it's impossible to be perfect.
Life now is so complicated. It's impossible for anyone to be good enough for the good place. These days, just buying a tomato at a grocery store means that you are unwittingly supporting toxic pesticides, exploiting labor, contributing to global warming.
This isn't me saying, it's so messed up, don't even try. It's me saying, be patient and understand that the answer isn't always straightforward. So when we talk about AI and the environment, we shouldn't just ask, is AI bad? We should ask, what is AI being used instead of? I'll have a few examples on screen, but one personal story was when I got a flat tire. I didn't feel qualified to change it myself, and my more car-handy friends were at work. Rather than call for a tow, I had ChatGPT walk me through changing a tire, saving gas by preventing the tow truck from driving out to me. Now, obviously, using AI mindlessly is bad. Spamming generations, making videos you don't need, running huge models for no reason. Yeah, that adds up fast. And yes, we should absolutely be trying to limit unnecessary use. But here's the part that people skip. Everything we do uses energy. Driving, painting, learning, creating, none of it is free. The real question isn't AI or no AI, it's how intentional are you with the tools you use, AI and otherwise. And just to be clear, I understand that the individual use of AI contributes to the growth of the industry. More usage, more demand, more data centers. That matters. But we really can't compare apples to oranges and the entire industry behind oranges. You see, if we're going to include long-term impacts like that, then we're going to have to apply the same logic to things like driving a car. So if we're being more clear about this, the comparison is individual use of AI and the related industry damage versus an individual owning a car and the entire motor industry. We also need to keep in mind that AI isn't as vital to some people as it is to others. Sometimes it's easy to say, I would never use AI, but for someone else, that might not feel like a real option. Maybe their industry is shifting, maybe their job depends on it, maybe they're just trying to keep up with everybody else. The weight of that decision isn't the same for everyone. Back to the public transport analogy, some people live right next to the bus stop, others have to walk a mile just to get there. If we approach the conversation with humility and meet people where they are, I think we're going to get better results. Support ethical tools, push for accountability. We need to encourage better practices, not shame people for falling short. I don't think we can just draw a hard line and hope everyone follows it. So to summarize this section, you can say, I ride the bus, or you should buy electric. And if we encourage these sort of options, great. But if we're shaming a guy for struggling to get to work in an old beater, that's not so great. And this all ties into a broader belief that I have. I don't think the best solutions are always instant all or nothing changes. Take fossil fuels. The world is heavily dependent on them. It's like an addiction. But just like how an alcoholic could die from stopping cold turkey, if we just cut everything off overnight, the consequences could be severe. Supply chains break, food transport stops, entire systems collapse. And so instead we push for transition. Cleaner energy, better infrastructure, gradual change, not because the problem isn't serious, but because the solution needs to be sustainable too. And that's how I see AI. It's not about ignoring the risks. It's about addressing them without creating new problems just as severe. Honestly, if you're very intentional about the way you use AI, you can actually have a smaller personal impact if we don't look at the whole industry aspect. Okay, imagine you are a renowned painter. You spent years of your life gaining talent and building a respectable career. One day, someone invents photography, nearly instant recreations of life. Terrifying thoughts start. How will I salvage my career? If art is instant, will creativity die? How will this affect the market? When photography showed up, people thought it would kill painting, but painters didn't disappear. They adapted. They leaned into what photography couldn't do: emotion, abstraction, interpretation. And even when painters became photographers, guess what helped them stand out? The same skills that they had as painters: composition, lighting, framing, understanding how to position a subject to make them feel alive instead of stiff. Then digital art came along. Now the fear wasn't speed, it was replication. Art could be copied instantly, shared everywhere, duplicated infinitely. People asked, if everything exists everywhere, does art lose its value? But digital artists didn't destroy traditional art. They became artists in a new medium. And the traditional artists? They carried over their understanding of color, form, and design. All the centuries later, and people still decide to take hours to create an image by hand, painstakingly painting every stroke. So here we go again. A new tool, a new wave of fear, a new question. Does this kill creativity? And this is where I land. I have faith in people, and I have faith in my ability to adapt. Because this is not abstract for me. The world told me, get a degree. That's how you'll succeed. So I got a degree in graphic design. And now the world is saying, yeah, AI lets us all do that now. Cool. Good for them. Seriously, I'm not bitter, I'm not jealous, because I've never worried myself with what other people can do. I define myself by how quickly I can learn, adapt, and improve. So, when AI showed up, I didn't run from it. I went, oh, a new tool, let's figure it out. Because here's the truth, AI did not make me obsolete. It raised the baseline. Anyone can generate something that looks okay, but okay isn't the same as good. Anyone can type, give me a cool interior design, and AI will give you the safest, most bland, middle-of-the-road result imaginable. Live, laugh, love. And if you try to spice it up, I need a better design. I'm quirky, creative, and queer. You get live, laugh, lesbian. Now in rainbow. That's what happens when you let a tool do all the thinking. You don't get art, you get slop. Because real creativity, that takes effort. You have to guide the process, refine the outputs, combine ideas, inject perspective, fix mistakes. AI almost gets things right, and then it gives someone 6 fingers. Cool, I can fix that. Like the ancient painters and traditional artists, my skills are transferable. I can use Photoshop. Look, my degree still helps a little. My skill matters. Your skill still mattered. When I started using AI, I didn't stop creating, I went deeper. Look at this video, it took me like 30 hours. And I didn't spend 30 hours just typing prompts. I talked to real people, I researched, double-checked sources. Then I sat down and argued with AI to develop my points even stronger. Then I went in and rewrote sections. I got human feedback. Then I edited everything by hand. Sure, AI helped, but this is still me. There is something awe-inspiring about the ancient masters and their magnificent works like the Sistine Chapel. The effort and intention that went into the art was so astronomical. I will never see AI art with that level of effort or intentionality behind it, so it'll never rise to the level of respect in my mind of the ancient masters. So no, I don't think AI kills creativity. I think some lazy people will get lazy results, and the people who pour themselves in, well, they'll get better results, because that's how it's always worked. Industries change and tools evolve. I want to encourage people to evolve with them so they can succeed. Look, life is hard, AI is scary, change is uncomfortable, but I refuse to sit still and become obsolete. I'm going to meet the world where it is and figure out how to move forward from there. So if you're worried about AI, that's fair, but don't freeze. Step forward, learn, adapt, and please keep creating. That was so much fun for me to make. I love a good mental wrestle, really digging in and figuring out why I believe the things that I believe. Oh, and before I sign off, I really want to stress, these are all my opinions, and I don't speak for anyone who helped contribute to the process of me making this. That being said, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Obsidian and Chiseo for pushing me to think deeper on this and helping me to see angles that I wouldn't have considered on my own. Also, thank you to Azatoth, Willow, and Shaniqua for helping me add various ideas throughout. Honestly, I had a lot of fun making this, and I learned a lot. Anyway, that's about it from me. Let me know your thoughts. Did I shift your opinion? Did new information I gave you make your own position stronger? Love to know. Anyway, I'll see you around, you fruity bitches.
We may be twisted, won't deny. Gotta laugh or we'll all cry. We don't need no PC snitches. We just wanna hang with our fruity bitches.